Hello everyone, welcome to my channel Linguistics and Literature with Imran. In the subject World Englishes, we will discuss today language variation. So language is not a monolithic entity, it comes with different variation. In this lecture, we will discuss in detail causes of language variation. We will discuss variations at all levels such as phonological variation, lexical variation, and syntactic variation. The difference between dialect and language will also be the part of today's lecture. There will be discussion whether truly the distinction between dialect and language exists or it's merely a political one. So let's begin our today's lecture. The concept of English. In school or college days, our teacher used to tell us that use proper English. By proper English, they mean that use correct form of a word, or you have to pronounce a word in one form. So there was only one form of English, or we can say that there was a single English, and we were forced to use a standard English. Right? If, for example, that we pronounce a word in a different way, so a teacher used to correct us. Or if we use a sentence or we constructed a sentence in a different way, so our teacher would used to tell us that this is not a standard English. Or if we use a vocabulary, our teacher would used to tell us that this isn't like a proper word. So it means that there was the concept of proper English, there was the concept of a standard English, and the concept of a standard English and the concept of a proper English existed because there was only one form of English. But today we know that there is no single English. We have Englishes. So it means that there are varieties of English. Right? In Pakistani context, we are using Pakistani English, and in Indian context, we are using Indian English, and in Bangladeshi context, we are using Bangladeshi English, and so on. Right? So every variety of English is correct according to its context. So if today you are pronouncing a word different from the US or different from the England, right? So it wouldn't be like incorrect, or nobody can object you that you are wrong because you are using a variety of English, right? And we have variation. As we have like Urdu language in Pakistan, we have Pashto language in Pakistan, and there are varieties of Urdu language. There are varieties of Pashto language. There are varieties of Punjabi language. There are varieties of Sindhi language. So in the same manner, we have also varieties of English language. So this was an old concept that used a standard English, the English which is used in Great Britain, or use a proper English, pronounce a word accurately the way that British people pronounce, or use a syntactic structure which is appropriate in Great Britain. But today, we don't have this concern, right? Because we know that we can't speak a single English. Because this English is affected by social norms, cultural norms, right? And sometimes we have like a region, sometimes we have like a class. So there are different factors which impacts this variety, and this lead to like a variety of English. So there is no like a single English today. We have Englishes, we have world Englishes, varieties of Englishes. So this concept is gone now, right? Now people talk differently. So there's a question that why people use different dialects of a language, or why people use different varieties of a language, or why people speak differently. It's a question. So as I told you at the beginning that we will discuss the causes of the variation of a language. So this is the causes. So reason for speaking differently. So the reason that people speak differently, it might be because of the social class. You belong to one class, I belong to other class. By class we mean like a upper class, elite class, right? Working class or middle class. Which class you belong to, you are going to use that variety of a language, right? And this people use different languages because of region, okay? For example, if you talk about Pashto language, so I belong to this part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, which is Nowshera or Peshawar. So here we are using Yusufzai dialect of a Pashto. Or if you go to southern part of this province, so you will find variation of this Pashto language. So people speak differently because of region differences, right? I belong to one region, you belong to other region. The same is also case with education, because if you are highly educated, so you will use or you will speak with one variety of a language, and I will use a different variety of a language or different situation, because in different situation we use different language or we speak differently. For example, if I am at class, so I'll use differently, and if I am with my friends, so I'll speak the same language differently. Or if I am in front of my family member, so the same language I'll use different. If I'm in market, so I'll use differently. Or if I am at the bus station or train station, so everywhere or every situation will affect the way I use language. Okay, similarly the way how I feel. If I feel happy, I'll use differently. And if I'm nervous, so the same variety of a language I'll use differently, right? Or if I'm excited, so I'll speak differently. So this is a question that people talk differently. So why people talk differently? This may be because of social class, this may be because of region, this may be because of education, this may be because of different situation, or it may be because of feeling. So this is only an introduction to the variety of a language, right? This gave us the concept that the English which is spoken in Great Britain would be spoken differently in Pakistan, or the English which is spoken in US would be spoken differently in New Zealand or Australia or Bangladesh, right? Or some African country like in Egypt, right? In Nigeria. So because that is because of the region. Because I belong to this part of the world, there's different region. And the people who are living in Britain, so there is a different region. Or the people who are living in America, there's a different region. So the same way that we speak like a Pashto language, and there are varieties of Pashto language. And if we speak English, so there are also varieties of an English language. Because of the region. I belong to one region, you belong to other region. Right? So this is the reason that why people talk differently, right? Now, despite of differences, people understand each other. Like, for example, I belong to Pakistan. I'll use one variety of English, and you belong to India. You're speaking other variety of English. Or somebody is living in US. He or she will speak other variety of English. Despite of differences, right? Or varieties of in English, still we are able to understand each other, right? So all speakers of English probably know what is referred to when somebody talks of a dog, because dog, that is also has the same meaning in US and also has the same meaning in Pakistan, the same meaning in England, or the same meaning in Bangladesh. Or in Ireland, or a thunderstorms utter the sound like dog. So it's the sound of the dog that is pronounced as dog, right? So people understand. So there are words which are quietly understandable to all regions of the people. But there will be some words, okay, or some vocabulary that wouldn't be understandable. There will be some words which the US people use I might not understand. Or there might be some words which used by the British people I might not understand. Or there will be some words which are used in Pakistani context in English language might not be understandable for the people of India, because my culture and my social norms or my surrounding is different than you people. Right? So here the heading is that despite of differences, people understand each. Sometimes, despite of differences, people understand each other. And sometimes people do not understand each other. right? Like for example, as I mentioned here, there's somebody talk of a dog. So, or an island, or a thunderstorm, utter the sound dog, etc. So, despite of differences, people understand each other. First, we will discuss in detail lexical variation, variations based on vocabulary. On the other hand, when somebody talks of a stubby or shivari, British people might not know what these words are. But these words might be understandable for the people who use English in Australia or in US. So it means that some of the words, as I told you, that the word dog, it is understandable in all dialects or wherever English is spoken or different varieties of English is spoken. But these words such as like a stubby or shivari, these words are not understandable for the people of British. Why? Because they are not practiced there. So of course, fellow Australian or Southern from the US will perfectly well understand and handle these words which are just theirs. So these words belong to the people of America or the people of Australia, shivari and stubby, which refer to like a small beer bottle, or it's a kind of sound which is produced at the wedding. Right? So, referring to a small beer bottle and a noisy night wedding celebration respectively, in case you are interested. So, this is the explanation of these two words. So, we can sum up that some of the words would be understandable, right, in different parts of the world, right? And some of the words, there'll be variation. So, like the people of one region might understand, but the people of other region might not understand. Remember, we are talking about varieties of language, and particularly we are referring to varieties of English language, right? Now, here we will discuss variations based on pronunciation. Similarly, that if a word glass is pronounced with a long A, or as in father, or a short A, or a raised A, vowel of words like cat, speaker from Southern England, Northern England, or the US respectively will just simply understand this sound because they do exist. Because these pronunciations reflect their own pronunciations habits. While hearers from elsewhere may be facing difficulties, because when you are pronouncing this sound like ah, like in cat, like in hat, like in mat, like in shat, so the people who are from like England or the people who are from like the US is quite, they can perfectly understand. Okay, but the people of elsewhere, they may have difficulties that which sound is uttered, whether that sound is ah, or the sound is ah, or the sound is a short one. So difficulties might face by other people. So these are variation. Like in Pakistan, we may pronounce or we may utter this sound like differently, right? Like if you ask me, so people might say cat, but if you ask me, so I'll pronounce as cat, right? So if I say cat, so that would be like the pronunciation of British people, cat. But if you say cat, so cat would be the accent or pronunciation of Pakistani English. So it means that variation also exists at pronunciation level. Variation, as here we mentioned, lexical level. Some of the words which do exist in Pakistani context or in Pakistani English might not exist in US or in British or in Australia. Or some of the words, okay, which exist in their context in Australia, in England, in US, might not exist in Pakistan. So as the topic was word that sometimes, despite of differences, we understand each other. There are certain words which are understandable for all region of the people where English is spoken. But there will be certain words that people do not understand because those words particularly belong to them. Similarly, that if you talk about like variation in pronunciation, so some of the pronunciation of sounds would be different in Australia, in America, in US, than Pakistan, India, Nigeria, Egypt, Morocco, or somewhere else, right? Now, syntactic variation, right? Variation based on sentences. The same applies to syntactic constructions as when in the mid-western US a baby needs cuddled or a Singaporean John Cena score, right? So there are equivalent ways of saying the same thing and none of them is inherently superior or worse than any other, right? So we might construct a sentence in one way while other people who were English spoken, they might construct a sentence in a different way. So we can't say that this syntactic structure is superior than somebody else. All syntactic structures have their values. As I told you at the beginning, that in the past our teacher would use to tell us that use proper English or use standard English. But now we can't say that this is proper or this is a standard one, right? So there are equivalent ways of saying the same thing and none of them is inherently superior or worse than any other. It is just that they work for those who share the same speech habit. So my speech habit would be different than the speech habit people living in America, living in US. Or internalized knowledge, and they may cause difficulty to outsider of speech communities. If you do not belong to my speech community, so for you it might be difficult. But for me, for my speech community, it is understandable. So variation also exists at syntactic level, right? Speaking same dialect. Speaking the same dialect means using the same coding system about how to get one's thought and meaning mapped onto sound, and that needs to be done in a systematic, regular, predictable fashion shared by all other speakers of the same dialect. Otherwise, communication wouldn't work, and as was illustrated above, this is a group-specific thing. Now, people who are living in England, they will share the same coding system. People living in America, they will share same coding system. People living in India, they will share same coding system. People living in Pakistan, they will share same coding system. And if they do not share same coding system, it would be difficult to communicate, right? We are talking about English language. The people who are living in Pakistan, so they will share the same coding system of an English language. If I use in one way, and other person is using English language in another way. Suppose that I pronounce a word like ah, and you pronounce the same sound as a. So if I say cat or you say cat, so sometimes it would be difficult to understand. So my coding system should be shared for all, like the people who are living in Pakistan or speech community. So this would lead to communication understandable. Otherwise, it would be difficult for the people to communicate, understand each other if they do not use the same coding system. What is the same coding system? To pronounce the word in the same manner, or to use the same syntactic structure, or to use the same lexical, like the way words are used in a particular community. So same lexeme, same vocabulary, same pronunciation, and same syntactic structure. And this would lead an effective communication, right? So we have now, you see that the dialect, like the English of Pakistan is different than the English of like America, US or India. So the people of Pakistan will share one kind of coding system and all the people will speak in that coding system. I hope you got it, okay, what I mean. Now, speaking in different dialect, right? How do we speak in different dialect? So there are words, pronunciations, modes, and structures which are known more or less exclusively to Yorkshire, African American, New Zealanders, Malaysian students, and like Ibo-Nigerian, and Indo-Trinidadians, and so on. Linguists nowadays emphasize that the fact that language vary, and they do so systematically, correlating with so-called sociolinguistic parameter like a speaker's regional origin, gender, age or status, or the context of situation. So these are the reasons which varies a language, right? It may be because of the regional origin, because of the gender, male or female, because of the age, your child, adult or old person, because of the status, which status you're holding in society, or because of the context or situation. So sometimes that people will use the same dialect, and sometimes people speaking in different dialect. So when people speak in different dialect, that is because of gender, because of age, because of status, because of the context of situation. So this will lead to variation in dialect. The same dialect, okay, we mean that the same dialect would be speaking differently. Like for example, we have a dialect in Pashto that is called Yusufzai, right? So there'll be variation, okay, in this Yusufzai dialect because of the age, because of the status, because of the context, because of situation, right? And sometimes we use the same dialect.